Yo, what is up, everybody? Chris here from Fake Sports News, back at it again with another video. Today, I'm going to be bringing you guys another episode in my How to Make a Perfect Bracket series where I make my final bracket of the year, that, of course, being a CDL Champs bracket. Now, most of you are new to the channel, so I'm just going to explain why I do this. Every year, I go through the mock vetoes because I am an analyst, and that's what I do on this channel. And I go through the mock vetoes of what I think the series will look like from the perspective of the teams and the coaches when they get into their picks and bans before the match starts. So what I do is I run my little prediction algorithm and I try to determine which maps are most likely to be picked for each side. And then based on that, I choose a winner. So without further ado, let's look right at the schedule and start booking our matches. Shout out to wrestling. So looking at our first matchup of the day, we have the London Royal Ravens taking on the Seattle Surge. And honestly, I do think that the Surge have a really strong chance of taking this just based on how the matchup has played out throughout the season. Gavitu is a map that will not make it through, in my opinion, and the same can be said for Bocage in favor of the hard points. But I don't think we'll see a Gavitu or a Bocage at all in this series in any mode. So that's something to note because London is very good at Gavitu, and then Bocage tends to favor Seattle between those two teams. London is not a very strong Bocage team, and Seattle's not a super strong Gavitu team. So if Gavitu or Bocage makes it through, I would say a Gavitu hard point definitely favors the Surge over the Ravens. The Ravens are, I believe, 3-9. No, that's Berlin. Their Gavitu is better, but their Bocage is not too great from what I remember from the stats. And in the case of Seattle, their Gavitu, I believe, is not as strong. So the picks and bans, I think, are going to be pretty orderly. I think it'll be pretty similar to the last few times that these teams have faced off, where we'll see Berlin, which they've never played hardpoint on, ironically, Tuscan, which they played on before, and of course, Desert Siege as the other search and destroy. So I think map 2 will be a Berlin hardpoint. London is 11-7 on that map, whereas the Seattle Surge are 6-6. Seattle seems to not really like to play Berlin. But it's likely that they will veto Gavitu since that's one of their weaker maps. And then I would expect London to veto Bocage. So I think with that Berlin pick, I think it's a London Royal Ravens win if the Ravens play as they should. They're not really the strongest land team in terms of their performances post stage one. They were a great land team in stage one, but after that, it just hasn't been the same. But I do think tomorrow's a new day. I think the London Royal Ravens will have an increased focus going into champs. And I think at champs, a lot of the maps will be dependent on which team is comfortable on that map, not necessarily which team has made the most improvements on that map, if that makes sense. I don't think that a team like Seattle will be able to overcome just the overall comfort that the Ravens have on Berlin, just given their strength of form and their record. So I think Seattle is in for a really tough map one. I think London likely take map one. And then Desert Siege is an interesting map. I see this one getting through, even though it's not necessarily Seattle's strongest S&D map, because they do have the edge over London. London is 7-0 when you take Seattle out of the mix with Siege S&D. So their only loss on Siege S&D is to Seattle. So that's likely why I think it'll get picked. I think Seattle will be Team B just so they can choose the search and destroy first. And I think London will want to get their first hardpoint pick in. So I think they'll choose Team A with the seeding since they are the higher seed between the two, fourth versus fifth, London being fourth, of course. Now that would mean map 3, we will see a Berlin control, which the Seattle Surge took, I believe, the last time they played. They've only matched up 2 times this season, I'm pretty sure. And Seattle did take the Berlin control when they played it. And additionally, Seattle is 6-2 on Berlin control, whereas London is 2-5. But conversely, Seattle is horrible at Gavitu control, and London is really good at it. So I see them banning that. And then on the London side, I see them banning Tuscan control because Seattle is just a really good Tuscan team. And Tuscan control is their bread and butter. So that means that map 4, well, map 3, I think that the Surge will take it. I think map 2, London will take it just because they are so comfortable on Desert Siege. Seattle is not as comfortable. They're 4-5. So I see London taking map 2 as well. Map 3 is where I see the Surge regaining. I see them taking the control pretty comfortably. And then in map 4, I think London walk away with a 3-1 here. I think they win the Tuscan HP. I think it's going to be a really, really close one. But I just think that London having 20 reps to Seattle 16, I think it'll make a big difference towards the stretch. London is 13-7 overall. This is one of their best hard points, and Seattle is 9-7. Now, I do have to include the map 5 just in case we get there. It is a Berlin for the game 5. Neither team is good at all. Seattle has 15 reps, but they're 6-9. And then London has 12 reps and they are 3-9. So if it makes it to a game 5, I would slightly favor Seattle, but their percentages are somewhat close in the sense that they're both really bad. So I would say Seattle has a marginal advantage, just statistically speaking. They're 6-9 versus 3-12. You can do the math there. That math is mathing pretty easily. So if it gets to a game 5, I would say Seattle has a slight edge. And they've also won Berlin S&D against London. I'm trying to remember when it was, doesn't matter. But if you see it get to a game 5, I would say Seattle is favored. Now, if everything goes to plan and these are the maps that make it through for the series, which I see being the most likely, given the fact that in the picks and bans, I tried to take away the team's weakest maps or maps they would easily counter the other one on. So for that reason, I think it'll be a 3-1 for the London Royal Ravens because this map set is super advantageous for them. In our next matchup, we will see the LA Thieves taking on the Boston Breach. And honestly, the map set is a little bit closer than I expected because looking back at it, obviously the Breach have gotten handled by Thieves all season long. 3-1, 3-0, 3-0. Didn't matter the roster. They've gotten 3-0 with Capsule and without. So I think that'll continue tomorrow, especially since the Thieves are coming off a really hot Major 4. And like I said in the last video, I think all teams will be game planning against the LA Thieves because there's so much VOD on them after Major 3. Just so many matches to sort through. But I just don't think that Boston has the personnel to really neutralize their key player, who is Kenny, of course, and to really neutralize the supporting cast. Like if they neutralize Kenny, Draza and Envoy can still go off with Octane and it's over anyways. So personally, I see this one being a 3-1 in favor of the LA Thieves, but I will get into the picks and bans I think will come through. So I'm thinking that Bocage and Gavitu get banned again because we know from early in the year, don't play us on Gav, said the Thieves. And also Boston is 2-8 on Gav, I believe. So I don't see that making its way through. Maybe it's Gav control, but I know their Gav hardpoint is also not very good. It's not encouraging. So I realistically see map 1 being Berlin, and I see map 4 being Tuscan. In the case of Bocage, I believe Thieves are not as strong on Bocage, and Boston are pretty strong on Bocage. So I think that's a pretty easy call to say Bocage and Gavitu won't make it through. And with that in mind, I think map 1, Berlin, goes in favor of the LA Thieves. They've been looking absolutely final on that map. That's the map that they won against Faze, send them home at Major 4. And also, it was one of the catalyst maps in the series against NYSL in the grand finals that helped them to win that championship. Similarly, Desert Siege is a map that neither team is really strong on. They are both 4-6, so this is a mirror matchup. Somebody's 4 has got to go, and somebody's 6 has got to go. So what I'm thinking is, I think Boston Breach take map 2. I think they make it interesting. And then map 3, it's not pretty statistically speaking. I believe Breach has vetoed Berlin 14 times, maybe 12 times. They've vetoed it a lot. They vetoed all the controls a lot. But Berlin was the one that really stuck out to me because I believe Gavitu, I know Thieves are really good on Gavitu, so let me just say that outright. I think that's one that they would ban. No, I think Tuscan. They might be like 16-7. Thieves are really good on both Gavitu and Tuscan. I think they're 8-4 on Gavitu and like 16-7 on Tuscan or something crazy. So with that in mind, I know that the Boston Breach will definitely ban one of those two maps, and the Thieves will likely ban the other, which would mean that they play the Boston Breach on Berlin. And I have the LA Thieves walking away with their second win on Berlin control against the Boston Breach side. They beat them on it before, so this will be the second time they beat them if that happens. Now that brings us to map 4, where I see the series realistically being closed out. Map 4 is a strong hard point for both teams. Just a little bit stronger for LA Thieves than Breach. but Breach has a better percentage overall, but fewer maps. So Thieves has played 21 times. They were 11 and 10. That's way more encouraging than Breach's side, which is 5 and 3 on Tuscan. Additionally, LA Thieves have also beaten Breach on Tuscan Hardpoint before. I believe the last time they matched up, they beat them on Tuscan Hardpoint. So that's a pretty easy 3-1 in my mind for the LA Thieves. And then in our next series, we will have Optic Texas taking on the Toronto Ultra. Shout out to Veli. And I think the Optic walk away with this one pretty comfortably. Map one, I likely see being a Bocage. I think that Berlin and of course Gavitu Hardpoint get banned. So I think Optic take Bocage for the fourth time. They've every time that they played Toronto, they played Bocage Hardpoint at some point, and Toronto has lost all three times they've played it. Similarly, on the map two, it's tied. I think Berlin will get through because it's a strong map for both in their pool. Desert Siege Optic has been like 29 times or something. I'm not trolling. I'll put it on the screen here. They've been an absurd amount of times. So I don't see that one getting through for them. And then in the case of Toronto, I think Bocage is a map that doesn't favor them. So I see them banning Bocage S&D, and that's why I think Berlin and Tuscan will get played. So both teams are 1-1, like I said before, but Toronto has a slight edge in terms of their percentages. They are 11 and 5, while Optic Texas is 11 and 8. So I favor Toronto to win map 2. And then I think map 3, the Gavitu Hardpoint. Toronto has actually won it in the past, but Optic is 6 and 1 overall, and they vetoed it a number of times. I think personally just to not give other teams intel on how they like to play Gav, because they wanted to play their weaker maps to strengthen their map pool when they get to the end of tournaments. So realistically, I see map 3 going Optic's way. And if you're keeping count, it's 2-1 in favor of Optic in my mock series. So I think Optic wins map 1, they win map 3, Toronto wins map 2, obviously. And then in map 4, Optic is 2-1 up over the Toronto Ultra. Toronto on Tuscan Hardpoint is 8 and 11, while Optic is 9 and 5. Optic has a much better record on Tuscan Hardpoint. They're a super strong Tuscan Hardpoint team. And Ultra, they're just not that good at Tuscan Hardpoint. They have trouble closing it out, and they also have trouble like really building up leads and maintaining some sort of parity with the team that they're playing against. So I see that being a blowout in map 4, realistically. Ultra is really one of the only teams that consistently gets blown out in hard points against better teams. So I don't know that that'll necessarily change tomorrow, but in the case that it does, game 5 will be a Tuscan S&D, and neither team has played Tuscan S&D against the other, but Optic overall is 10 and 3, while Toronto Ultra is 9 and 6. This is really the best map that they shared in kind, I believe, other than Berlin. So that's why I see it making it through. I think it'll be ego chows. I think a lot of these teams are going to be ego chowing their best maps because it's like we don't have anything to lose. We're already in the winners bracket at champs. So we might as well play teams on our best maps and not try to play them on our worst map that's also their worst map, or our best map that's their worst map, because they're going to veto it anyways. You see what I'm saying? It's going to get very dicey with the vetoes. So I really tried to make my predictions match that. I don't want this to keep dragging on and on. So I'm going to decisively say that I think it'll be a 3-1 for Optic Texas. I think that the Toronto Ultra take map 2 because Berlin S&D is one of their bread and butter maps, and I think they'll get that. I think that's a given. But it could be a 3-0. But just for the sake of it being champs and it being so serious and me giving my honest input, I'm going to say it's a 3-1, just given the fact that the map 2 is so strong for the Ultra Boys. Now, in our last series of the day, we will see my boys looking to go back to back. The Atlanta Faze taking on the New York Subliners. And virtually all of the maps are much stronger for Faze than they are for the Subliners. So let's get right into it. Let's just start. Map 1, I see it being a Bocage. I don't see Gavitu or Berlin making it through in the hard points. So I see map 1 being a Bocage, where Faze is 14 and 5 and New York is 6 and 5. So I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm thinking. I think Bocage goes the way of Faze since they're 14 and 5. I mean, wow, that's insane. New York Subliners, they are 6 and 5. They're a very solid Bocage team, but I don't think they can keep up with the Faze boys since they're 14 and 5 and it's champs. They're looking to go back to back. Sells on that MVP ride. I mean, come on, man. They're just doing a victory lap at this point. If they're playing New York, like they're gonna be dunking on these guys. Like, let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it a buck. It's gonna be looking like the Drew League. It's gonna be looking like street ball. Like, come on now. So enough of a tangent. On to the S&Ds. I see it being Berlin and Tuscan. Um, I don't know. I just don't think the Bocage makes it through. I just can't really see a world where Bocage makes it through. It's just such a bad map for the New York Subliners, and the same for Desert Siege. It's not really a strong one for them. Excuse me, for Faze, my bad. Faze always banned Desert Siege. I'll show you how many times they banned it. They banned it a lot. So I don't see them playing Desert Siege or Bocage because obviously Faze is really good on Bocage as well. Um, so map two is more of a toss. New York is 4-4. They don't play it a lot. And Faze is 11-8. I have Faze taking map two as well. I think it definitely heavily favors them. And then map three is a Gava 2 control. The only time that New York beat Faze on Gava 2 control was in the beginning of the year with Clayster early, like stage one, when teams are still figuring things out. So it's a 2-1 in their favor. But I personally think that the Faze boys will walk away with another victory. I think it'll be a 3-1 in terms of the controls all time, but I think it'll be a 3-0 in the series count. So with that in mind, I think the last matchup of the day with Faze will be a 3-0. And I think that'll pretty much wrap it up for us here. So if you guys want a quick recap, I'm thinking, oh, let me fill that out real quick. So I think 3-0 Faze, if my prediction holds. 3-1 Ravens over Surge, and then on the bottom side of the bracket, 3-1 Optic Texas over Ultra, and 3-1 LA Thieves over the Boston Breach. So yeah, guys, I'll bring you another video tomorrow going over what happened today and giving you a preview of what to expect going into tomorrow. So hope you guys enjoy. Hope you don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're new, and come back to the channel tomorrow for more coverage. Once again, this is Chris from Fake Sports News, and I'm signing off. Have a great morning, noon, or night, wherever you may be on this beautiful planet, and I hope you guys enjoy all the COD for day one of champs. And be sure to come back tomorrow for day two.